And welcome back to Mixed Media. And unfortunately, I'm seeing some technical difficulties happening right now. I'm not sure if those who are watching the stream right now can actually hear or see anything that's going on. If you could please give me a +1 in the chat, or react in any way if you can hear me. If you're on Discord as well, if you could double check and tell me if you could hear me. The major issue seems to be I'm like fluctuating in and out of both our TMP servers for both of our streaming services. But if I look at Discord, it looks like we're streaming all right. So there seems to be some weird internet bandwidth issue, which almost never happens to me. Nathan, can you hear me actually?
I can hear you, yes, and I am listening on YouTube as well, and it is like buffering and going and like buffering over and over again.
Okay, well, this is
in fact, we are very behind on YouTube. The countdown just started.
Well, that is a good start.
Yeah.
to let's see if I can look at some streaming status. Stream repeated 7 times. Nice. 5 times, 3 times, 13 times. What is going on? That's my log messages telling me how many times it has to resend some packet.
Oof. Some packet loss.
Okay, what is going on here? Let's see. Let me connect to my Wi-Fi. I don't. That obviously should not be better because I'm connected via Ethernet. But maybe it
seems pretty smooth now. It's just like delayed, but
really, I'm still getting super weird flashing on my screen, telling me that I'm not like 100% connected.
Oh, Twitch is frozen. It was fine for a moment, and then it died. Don't really know what's up with that. So wait, you're on Wi-Fi right now?
No, right now I'm on Ethernet. I'm about to switch to Wi-Fi to see. I mean, that really shouldn't help, but
no, probably not. You can try, I guess.
But I don't have any. I'm not using any more bandwidth than I normally,
Right.
Use. Let me see here. Or I might have to restart the stream. But on YouTube, that really screws everything up. So I really don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Switching now. And they're still flashing. Okay. That's wonderful.
Yikes.
Let's connect back to Ethernet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the screen saying that we have technical difficulties. I'm going to run out of the room, and I'm going to see if my cable wire is like loose or something like this. And then I'm going to run back. Give me 1 second. Let me turn off my Wi-Fi again because I don't want to use that. Connect just via Ethernet. There we go. Yeah, Rumble's like behind by like minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll put up the screen and I'll be right back. Yo, can you hear me? Oh, hold on, I might have muted you. I did. Sorry. Go ahead.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to transition back to I'm going to leave the technical difficulties things up because we still are having some issues. The issue, I think, is because my NAS, I have a NAS. I don't think anyone can hear me right now. Huh?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it's backing up. So I think my upload bandwidth is being crushed.
What is it? Oh, it's uploading to... Okay, so it's just like moving essentially like 2 feet over to like a different device. Is that what's happening?
No, it's uploading to the cloud.
Oh, your NAS uploads to the cloud? Is that what happens?
I just got unlimited data, unlimited on Dropbox, just so I could back up my whole NAS to the cloud.
Seems that has ruined us.
I did not think about that. I forgot this has been uploading for maybe a few days now.
Really?
So because I have like 12 terabytes. So so I forgot that it was even happening. So that's probably
what. Pause it, or is that just not a feature?
Yeah, I'm checking now. It's weird that I can talk to you so easily, but like
that is well, it might be. Oh, actually, I don't know. Hey, why would that be?
Yeah, right. Let me see. Yeah, there's no pause button. Are you serious? No. Well, okay, whatever. I have versioning turned on, so when I start it over again, it's gonna have to go through the whole validation process. But whatever. I'll have to take the L. That's fine. Okay. It's like it'll just take another 30 minutes to restart. Because it knows what files have been changed and whatnot. Okay.
Right.
So I've stopped it. Let's see if we come back live. It still seems to be sad.
On Twitch, it seems to be pretty good now. It's still delayed, but like it's smooth. If you get what I'm saying.
Wait, I'm hearing my voice somewhere. Oh. Hold on. Okay, YouTube seems to be back. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. So sorry, everybody, for that issue. It was a dunce idiot problem from me. There we go. Yeah, stupid problem from my end where I had my NAS backing up, my network attached storage. I have 12 terabytes of data backing up. I forgot about it because it literally takes days to do that, and I forgot that was even happening. So, hence my bandwidth getting crushed and destroying the whole show. But we're back now, and we're back with a little bit of a smaller crew for now. We're gonna have our other remaining guests and Ben as well join us in a moment, hopefully. But for the meantime, we'll talk about our normal opening opening segment, which is about the news. Shout out to y'all who have just shown up. You just showed up after the chaos. I just watched our Rumble numbers kick back up. I wonder if that also has to do with. It might also have to do with bandwidth issues. I wonder if you can't even see it on Rumble if like on search or something like this as streaming now or something weird like that. But yeah, welcome to the show. It's usually not this bad of an opening, but having a lot of technical issues. But now we're here. So welcome to the show. This is a weekly podcast that happens every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's a fun time. We talk about everything art related, whether it's in our own particular fields. Our three main hosts talk about music, gaming, and film. And right now, Ben, who will be Ben is not here. He will be with us, and he's the music guy. He'll be with us hopefully in like 10 minutes or so. And Nathan is the Skype logo. So yeah, in fact, let's just introduce ourselves real quick. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
My name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a video game developer and 3D modeler. I'm usually on camera, but I forgot. Well, I mismanaged time. I was coding. I was very into coding at the moment, and now I'm eating dinner while the podcast is happening. So I'm almost done, so I'll be on video soon. But for now, I'll be the disembodied reggae voice.
That's a reference.
Yeah.
If shout out to y'all if you can name out if you can name the reference, put it in the chat and you'll get a cookie or something, a virtual cookie.
Actually, you'll get the ice cream that appears in that episode.
Oh, even better.
Yes.
But yeah, so we'll just continue the show as is for now. But oh man, I'm so frazzled. I hate when technical issues happen at the beginning of the show. It like throws my game off entirely. I was so hyped. So today, as for those of you who don't know and didn't see part one, we'll be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and we'll be talking about it for another 2 to 3 hours. Last episode was about 2 hours and 45 minutes of just pure, awesome conversation between 4 of us. And this week we're going to talk about it again, hopefully from a little bit more of a practical perspective. Last week we talked mostly about like philosophical things, what AI is, what it isn't, what differences can we point out, obvious differences, frankly, if you know anything about, well, philosophy or even the state of science around humans, things that are rather obvious about the differences between humans and AI, and what this means for human culture, right? So, like, what does AI art, or even just AI used for social purposes, how does this affect the cultural landscape of the whole world? Frankly, not even just our own country, our own state, our own community, the whole world. And it was a fascinating conversation. If you want to check that out, you just have to go to our channel, and it's the video prior to this one. You know what really annoys me, Nathan?
What's that?
YouTube, like a while ago, this happened a while ago, but it still annoys me every time we go to our channel. It puts all the live VODs in a separate tab called Live. Yeah. And I have no option to rearrange our tabs so that Live comes first. It is
it looks like we're like inactive, but it's like, no, we're just live.
It is so infuriating because they just made this is what the YouTube does over and over again. And this is why I love Rumble people. So shout out to y'all who are watching on Rumble right now. I wish you guys talked more, but you guys are awesome. But YouTube just does things. Like, regardless of like malintent or not, they just will do things like willy-nilly without asking your permission or like whether it's a good idea or not. They'll just do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like oh, this looks better, it's more organized or whatever. Maybe that's the reason, I have no idea. But like some shows like this one, we transition the way that we do our publishing on video streaming, and that's a permanent conscious decision by me. Like, I'm not going to continue, I know on that
was me,
right? Oh, that was you. I was like, is Post here? No, we're not going to continue. We're not going to upload our individual episodes onto YouTube, Rumble, or Twitch anymore. It's almost certainly going to be just the podcast thing, where it's divided into different segments. So, and that's for a variety of reasons. But YouTube doesn't give me the flexibility for no reason other than they decided overnight that this is how it's going to go. To rearrange the tabs so that our more active tab, which is the live tab, is first. It's very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But shout out to y'all on Rumble. We got our first chat on Rumble. Like, a lot of you watch on Rumble, but y'all don't chat. We got our first chat on Rumble last week, and unfortunately, it was the first time I've ever missed a chat. Pretty much. It's because we're having such we're having such an engrossing conversation that I stopped looking at chat for like a bit. And went back, saw the comment, and I think the person was gone by then. But I love y'all on Rumble. So shout out to y'all for helping us diversify our viewership and keep us safe from the random whims of like tech platforms that just decide overnight that they want to be different. So there you go. But other than that, how was your week, Nathan?
Sorry, I was eating.
Okay, that's okay.
It's been alright, I guess. I've been, as I alluded to before, absolutely grinding out a bunch of code, working on a project that I've alluded to before. It's like It all works.
That's good.
Yeah, which is surprising, but yeah, it actually all works. And it's relatively complicated, I guess. But yeah, it can. If you don't know, I'm working on a project where essentially for the game, your only move is hustle, where you can download this mod, and then all you have to do is click a button in the game, and your replay will be saved to. Oh, I get to use a buzzword. I get to use the cloud. It gets saved to the cloud, which is one of my servers, by the way, a singular one. That's the cloud. But for now, yeah, it gets saved to the cloud. You can share it with a link. It embeds on Discord and all that great stuff. And the reason why you might be like, well, I mean, like, couldn't you just like download like the replay and then like pay, just like upload the file to Discord or whatever? Oh, no, because the game doesn't provide you with the actual replay video. It gives you a replay file which you cannot decipher yourself. Like, only programs can read it, essentially.
So that's what you were talking to me earlier off podcast about why you needed a server that actually renders stuff. Oh, okay, yeah. I fully get it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but unfortunately, so I currently use a service called Linode, which is like AWS or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, which is like a cloud computing service, right? Essentially, it just gives you a computer you can use from anywhere, pretty much, and yeah, it's pretty useful. So that's how I host the website. But like, I need also another server that does like very simple GPU tasks that just needs to render some video, right? It's very simple. But the issue is they don't provide that kind of stuff. I think part of it is because of a technological limit, because all that stuff is like in a VM, right? A virtual machine, which means that you can't. You tend to already get like really bad graphics performances anyways, right? In a virtual machine. The reason why that you do a virtual machine is because one, it lets them split servers into containers that, so you don't have to have one server per person. You have a really powerful server, you can split it amongst multiple users in a contained way, so people can't access to those files and stuff like that. And also, it's safer for them because, like, if it's like bare metal, people are just like, you could just download some malware onto their servers, right? And that's not good. So, yeah, instead of use a virtual machine, but yeah, it seems like nobody lets you use a GPU that's like that exists actually. Actually, I guess they all don't let you use GPUs at all, unless you want to do some really like high end stuff like AI training and stuff like that with tensor cores and stuff like that, or like ray tracing and stuff. That kind of stuff they'll let you do, but then you got to pay like $1,000 per month, and it's like I just need to like render the simplest 1080p like footage. Like, it's really not that complicated. I'm not trying to pay $1,000 a month for like something I could buy, like, I don't know, some like old $50 graphics card for and just put it into a server and do it myself, But yeah, that's the state of that. So I'm gonna have to actually physically build a server, which is like, man, it is like. Motherboards have gotten very expensive. GPUs, the prices have gone down. I don't even use GPU really. I can just use a CPU with an integrated GPU. But motherboards are like dumbly expensive for no reason. So that's kind of unfortunate.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. And welcome, Ben.
Hello.
You just missed our a classic, technical turmoil moment that happened for the first 10 minutes of the podcast. But do you want to introduce yourself for those who are watching right now, since you just got on?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer in Los Angeles.
Sweet. Yeah, we were just talking about how our weeks have been going, and Nathan was describing his programming project.
Yes.
Yeah. Were you done explaining, Nathan?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. My week, let's see. Oh, my week has been insane. I feel like I'm exhausted. I'm really exhausted right now because life is clobbering me with like 5 things at once, as happens on occasion. I feel like there's always like once a quarter, there's always just like, a week or 2 stretch where it's just like, oh, awful. But that's just how it goes. But part of the busyness is because I'm trying to buy a house, and part of that craziness of trying to find a place to buy has been something I mentioned before that I thought was very unlikely, and kind of overnight became extremely likely. which was buying that random pizza place that I mentioned before on the podcast. I was very unsure when I first mentioned it that I would ever put an offer in because I was kind of trending towards the negative because of a few issues with financing and other things in terms of like loan conditions and just nonsense. Nothing to do with like total amount of money. It has to do with like the repairs that would need to be done to the property and stuff like this. But today, and maybe I could pull up a picture actually. I went to see the place for the last time before probably putting in an offer sometime in this week on that place, which is kind of nuts. And actually, I don't know if I played this game with y'all last time, but in the chat too, you can tell me what you think is reasonable. This is a pizza place that's about 4,300-ish square feet, maybe 4,500 square feet. I can't remember. Above grade, above street level. There's also a basement that's about 1,000 square feet. There is a bunch of restaurant equipment that it's being sold with. It's negotiable, which includes, because it was a pizza place, it was like a traditional Italian pizza place. So sit-down place, nice place. It has pizza ovens, pizza stones, a whole bunch of equipment in the kitchen. And it has a really nice dining hall where there's like beautiful benches that are original to the building, which I found out recently. Like this building was built in 1890. So these benches actually are original to the candy shop that used to be there. And, there's like really cool little mirrors. Okay, guess how much the list price of this place would be. If you get, and I live in Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. If you don't know, you don't know. So then it won't help you. But if you have a good guess in the chat how much you think that would go for, how much I would be paying to get that.
I think you already told me, so I'll have to sit down with this game.
Yeah. And while you guys are thinking, and I want you to chat, people. I missed that one chat, and now I'm like I've gone nuts because I don't want to miss a chat ever again. But yeah, definitely let me know what you think. Other than that, my week has been crazy with work. I have a few projects that have not coinciding, but close deadlines to each other for clients, and more people hitting me up for work, which is not bad. But I've kind of done with solo work, and I don't know when I cannot be a solo person in my company. But it is damn lonely. I will tell you that for sure. But also it is it's just exhausting sometimes. So that's been my week. And I'll give you the answer after Ben tells us how his week is.
No, my week was, I guess, fine. Yeah, I don't know, nothing that notable. Went to a nice production of the LA Opera of Verdi's opera Otello. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Cool. I don't know anything about any operas, frankly. Anything particularly interesting about this one, or?
No, I mean, I guess. Well, to be fair, I've also never seen Shakespeare performed. Like pure Shakespeare performed. So I mean, this is not like a pure. It's it's a performance of it, but also with the music, right? So I don't know. It's interesting because when you read, I remember reading Othello back in high school, and obviously what happens is quite easy to understand, but thinking it was kind of silly, what's the point of this play? But I think it makes much more sense, maybe because I'm older now as well, but also just I think seeing it highlights that it's not just there's this guy who's just bad and he does bad things and makes people do bad things. I mean, yes, but I think part of the real tragedy is not just that they're the bad person out there in the world, but that the real tragedy is that Othello allows himself to like believe what Iago says without like questioning it at all.
Mm.
Right, he's like that susceptible to like any suggestion of, he's been with his wife for one day, and Iago says, "Oh, your wife is cheating on you." He's like, "Great, I'm gonna go kill her." Essentially, that's what happens, and I don't know. It makes more sense when you see it, I think, and also I'm sure the music helps as well. I've never seen a pure play or any pure Shakespeare play, but yeah, it makes it more like the point is easier to see, I think, when you just read it and it sounds kind of silly. Right? It's easier to see that, like, oh, that's the point, is that Othello has like this flaw, like he's generally a good guy who gets corrupted, but he also is like easily susceptible to the slightest suggestion from somebody, and like takes the slightest suggestion and decides to resort to violence, essentially.
Nice, what a character. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I remember. I think it's To Tame a Shrew. Is that what?
No, the Taming of the Shrew.
The
Yeah.
Taming of a Shrew. There you go. I remember reading that in school and being like, "Wow, this is completely unfunny and completely just boring, and I don't really understand." Then I watched a movie reproduction of the whole thing that was, faithful to the script. Obviously, it's a movie, so it's changing mediums a bit, well, a lot of bit, but in terms of the script, word for word, was exactly the play, and it was hilarious. And the thing is, like, you don't think that, like, being able to see a joke being performed when you didn't understand the language to begin with, like, the first time, would make a big difference, but it makes a gigantic difference because you can kind of intuit things, and it was literally like I was dying laughing, and I don't laugh at movies very easily. So yeah, I think it's kind of tragic that we consign Shakespeare to the written text instead of performing it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, I've never really seen much. I've seen musical theater, and then opera. Like, I've seen student operas. This is like the first truly like massive, professional production I've seen of an opera, and quite interesting. I kind of grew up with my dad only listened to instrumental classical music. Lots of non-classical music, but in the classical realm, only instrumental stuff. My mom only listen. If he wasn't listening to pop music, she'd listen to musical theater stuff. I don't know. I just kind of grew up with this perception that opera is just a bunch of people singing really high notes in a boring style for 3 hours, in an incomprehensible language. Is like the epitome of, like, not the epitome, but like the ultimate worst of music. And to be fair, if you just put on like a recording of an opera, I think you're really missing something, because you need to see the opera.
Yeah,
you need to see it. It would kind of be like, it's not like there's nothing you can get from just hearing it. But it's like, if you just listen to, like, if you just like read a film's script instead of watching the film.
precisely.
Right? Like,
yeah. Like, a classic exercise for film majors is to read Chinatown. It's like the traditional, like, script to read, right? Is Chinatown, and like in reading Chinatown, I was like, okay. I mean, this seems like I was like, okay, I get why this is the script to read, because it's well formatted. It's everything is like very economical in the way that it's done. Not too much description, but not too little description at the same time, and all this kind of stuff. And it was okay, I guess. But, like, it's not like watching Chinatown. Like, obviously, you wouldn't conflate those two experiences. Like, wow, I really, like, understand Chinatown now because I read the script. It's nothing like it. You watch the movie, you're like, oh, okay, this is completely other than what my mind interpreted the movie to be from the script. So, yeah, change of medium is important. Yeah. Yeah, so, this is what I wanted to do. I'm going to give you the ask price. So the ask price for this pizza place. Well, actually, do you guys? I know Nathan knows, but I don't know if I told Ben already.
I don't think so, but I don't really have any sense of.
Okay. Well, that 4,500 square foot place with a nice restaurant at the bottom is being sold for $250,000. The ask price in Mount Carmel, but that is overpriced, severely overpriced, actually, for the region. So my opening offer will be something closer to $150,000, which is insanely. I'm buying a very large property for the price of like a tiny house, maybe if that, even in Jersey where I'm from. So massive difference, and you should come out to places like this. This is great. Yeah, but that's what I've been doing. And I also went to the rooftop today when I went to go see it, and the views from the rooftop are gorgeous. The mountainscape, the little church peaks coming up from the town. It just looks like a postcard, as most things do around here. I'm gonna deck out the roof. I'm gonna finish the roof. I'm gonna put a grill up there. Gonna put some seating up there. It's gonna be a good time, as long as everything goes well with the deal being accepted, which is a big if. So, yeah, that's my pitch for the coal region of Pennsylvania. Come out here. It's everything's cheap. There you go. I was going to try to stall as much as possible to see if Post was going to come on, but he hasn't been responsive today. Like, he hasn't been. He hasn't said anything on Discord, I don't think, at all today. So I don't know if he'll be able to make it. Post, for those of you who don't know, has guested on the last AI Roundtable. It was really fun to have him on. So we'll see if he ends up showing up. But later on, we have in like maybe 20-30 minutes, we have a different guest also coming on. I actually don't know if he minds us using his real name. I guess he put his real name as his name on Discord, so probably he doesn't care. Which is Alex Edgar, some guy I randomly met after church this weekend. And he was just like, yeah, I'm into game design. I was like, okay, cool. And of course, people say they're into doing something. You're like not sure if they're like really into it. And then he was like, yeah, I made 3 games. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I gotta get you all. Exactly. There's people who are into game design, but they've never actually picked up anything and done anything. Just like there are people who are into film and don't actually make any moves to do anything. So, didn't know what kind of person I was talking to. And he started talking about stuff that I didn't understand, which is a good sign that he should probably be in the Discord. And and he should probably be on the podcast too. So he'll be joining us later on the show. And with that, I guess we should just start the conversation here. And I'm trying to think of news. Oh, news! Yes, more delaying tactics. But yeah, any interesting news that you guys noticed in your respective fields?
I don't know if you noticed, but I was a little bit like not focusing because I was reading something. I went down the rabbit hole. I started reading a New York Times article about like the esports or something like that, and then I ended up at a Riot Games blog post about esports, and I guess the actual content, like what it's about, right? It's about just like, hey, the future of sport it says the future of sport at Riot Games. It's like, esports, Riot Games is going well. Well, it's not saying that necessarily. It's saying, they want to continue with that kind of stuff. But then it reads like a plea for like help. Like,
what does that mean?
As in if things aren't looking good in the esports space in terms of financials.
Oh yeah.
It reads like they're like, look guys, it's like, without saying it, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that bad. And we put a lot of thought into this. It looks like something that you would like. I don't know who this is for actually, because it's not for like I don't think this is like necessarily for the average Joe, like just to read this, like, oh yeah, it's not really that interesting, It's just a lot of like, Riot Games, esports, like that's pretty good. But it just I don't know, just even the tone of it doesn't really sound like like it sounds like somebody's doing very good. I don't know, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. I remember having the thought of like, you watch like League of Legends, which of course is made by Riot Games, that like it's really hard to follow if you don't don't. But they actually acknowledge that. They know this is like that's just facts. That's just how it is. And they just so they say, oh man, I lost the spot. It's kind of it's not long, but it's long enough where finding the spot is hard. Basically, they said, paraphrasing, essentially like, yeah, we know it's kind of hard, but we don't use esports to get new players into our game, because we know that we've seen from experience that it's just way too hard for people to understand League of Legends if they don't have a foundational knowledge. So it's actually the other way around, where the game brings people into the esport, and not esport brings people into the game. It's interesting because when you think about it, actually mentions the fact that in traditional sports that's not really the case, because if you're watching like basketball and it's like dude like throws a ball and it goes into a tiny hoop from like 30 feet away, you can kind of see why that's kind of crazy, Whereas League, it's like there's just some colors going on. I don't really know what's happening. I don't really know why this particular color is way cooler than this one or whatever, So and then they also mentioned how Valorant is a little bit easier to understand, which I think makes more sense, and that it's like you can just see like the reaction time and the accuracy is kind of crazy, even if you still don't really understand, the whole picture, and I still can't find that part, so I'm just gonna I give up. But yeah, that's what I have for that as well. Steam added a new feature.
Wait, can I comment on that story real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I've talked about this many times on the podcast, but the esports space is something I'm very interested in getting into for a lot of different reasons. But nothing makes me happier than the failure of these current institutions, because they're kind of dragging the entire entertainment space of esports to the ground. Not because, well, some of them just don't care. So I guess some of them just don't care. I would say Riot Games was kind of grifting for a while, because they didn't even attempt to make a sustainable business model, not for themselves, but for the players and for the leagues. They made a lot of money themselves. But it's just everything is coming to fruition. I'm gonna probably do an esports a show at one point to talk about the specific issues in esports as they currently stand and why this was bound to happen. But needless to say, one of the goals for that pizza place that I just bought is one day I'm gonna move out, probably within the next year or two. I'm gonna buy my own place because I don't want to live in an apartment anymore. But the remaining space that I move out will probably become a broadcast studio. So that's kind of the long-term alignment that is going on with that. And there will almost certainly be an esports component to that, and I can't wait to talk about all the details of that when that comes around. I've actually talked to a broadcaster recently about this project. So, today, actually, I think, or was yesterday. So it's going to be really cool if we can pull it off. But yeah, esports needs better people in the space who can actually entertain people and not just grift. So that's my short rant.
Right. Speaking of like a not financially stable or not financially profitable place for like teams to participate in, actually, I guess part of the news, may I said this before, is that one of the biggest League of Legends teams called TSM, which has won 7 championships in the largest league tournament, considered selling their spot in the league for around $20 million. I think. I don't know if they're still considering it. This is like news from a couple months ago. That's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But like, dang, that's kind of crazy though. Like, think about it. Like, they won 7 championships. Like, they're in there. You know what I'm saying? They're like, I don't really know much about league esport, but at least I know their name, so that means something.
Well, that tells you that $20 million is the value of not being an esport to them. which is not enough. From like if you flip the equation, he's like, oh, that's expensive to sell the spot, but it really shouldn't be. Is the problem, right? Like it should be like hundreds of millions of dollars proposition for them to sell the spot, like for it to be like quote unquote worth it, but it's not. $20 million isn't enough to sustain. I mean, $20 million for like a year. If they were getting $20 million a year, that'd be a different story. Maybe it'd be okay. But there's a lot of expenses because these people travel. Like they make them travel, and travel is like the number one by far expense to these teams, and it's insane how much they travel. So
Travel, okay. I was about to say, I was actually thinking like, why is it so expensive compared to like traditional sports? Like you think about
it's
basketball.
international travel. It's not even like from state to state. It's like from country to country.
But still, when you think about the price difference, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so like you think about basketball, right, or something, the NBA, like, so you're paying like the entire team of people, right, which is not just people you see on the court, but also all the bench players who practice with them and stuff like that. You're all like the coaches and like any other like assistants essentially. Essentially, you have a massive staff, probably, right, relatively speaking. And then you're probably paying that. Well, you pay the players quite nicely as well. Even bench players get paid quite nicely. You have to you pay for your stadium, right? You actually have a stadium, whereas in esports, I highly doubt you have a stadium.
Well, you don't. Sports teams don't have stadiums.
They don't own the stadium, but they rent it out essentially rent it out. I guess have a contract of like, hey, or something similar. They pay somebody, right? They pay somebody somehow to be able to use some stadium, essentially. Whereas I think in this case it's the league in esports typically that pays for the venue or whatever, right? So they don't have to pay that. It just sounds kind of. And in the NBA, they play games so often. They don't travel internationally, but they do travel a lot domestically. So I don't really know. I'm not really sure. Like, I don't understand where the money. I don't know. I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know where the money's going. Maybe it is actually reasonable, based on like just poor, maybe league management or something like that the teams aren't able to make money.
Well,
I'm not really sure.
I'll put it really short. Basically, what's happening is that these leagues are spending money like they are the NBA when they're not pulling in any NBA money in return, which is obscene. Like they're spending so much money on marketing, on video, on a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm here for it. Like I like to see the quality stuff come out of these leagues, but they're not actually trying to appeal to general audiences. And how could you spend general audience money without a general audience? You can't. So, I mean, if you have no growth too, you can't even borrow effectively. It's a big problem. So, there's a million and one problems on top of that. But like international travel is way more expensive than state to state travel. And if you know sports scheduling, they're scheduled such that the distances they travel are minimized overall. So you'll have more, like for example, like I think in the NBA, like half your games are home games or something like this, or something like that. So you're not even traveling for half your games. And then for the ones that you are traveling for, there's division, and then there's conference, and then there's the whole league. So your proportionality of how much you play other teams is proportional to the way it's sectored geographically, which helps alleviate the cost drastically. These leagues aren't even doing that. So they're sending people from like Spain to like to Korea.
Optimize?
No, because these tournaments are all independent for like basically like they don't. There's no like there's no structure like that, like division, conference, stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, that's a whole episode of ranting basically about esports, which I've done ridiculous amount of market research into, so I could probably talk everybody's ear off about it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, well, yeah, that's not news. And then real briefly, so Steam is adding a feature that adds essentially a free trial option for games where you can play a game for a set amount of time before, I guess, it expires and then you can't play it anymore. It's now a thing on the Dead Space remake page. I think that's the first instance of it occurring. So yeah, you can play it for an hour and a half before it kicks you out. Which kind of strange. I feel like it's just better to say like at a certain point, but I'm not gonna get into it. This is kind of a long news segment, anyways. Also, the new Mortal Kombat is coming out. Mortal Kombat 1, it's called, which I can only assume that it's a remake of the first one. I don't actually know much about Mortal Kombat, so I couldn't like actually look at the trailer and be like, yeah, it's a remake. I don't know. I'm assuming so. Otherwise, the naming is very strange. Oh yeah, and the reason why I mentioned this out of all the games is because it'll be supposedly a 100 gigabyte install, which I don't really get how that happens. I understand how that happens for like Call of Duty, because like it's like, oh, a whole bunch of skins, and it's like incredible amount of skins, and for some reason we don't like download them on the fly when we need to, right? It just save them all. But then like that kind of, like, I can see how this happens because one, you have large maps, and then you have a lot of operators who all have skins. And then you have a whole bunch of weapons and attachments that all have skins, and they have a lot of them, right? But Mortal Kombat is like a relatively small set of characters, and like really small maps. I don't know like what is possible that they can actually be 100 gigabytes, and why we don't just like stream those textures in live, because it's a multiplayer game, so you already have to have internet to. Well, I guess you can probably play like a story mode of Mortal Kombat or something like that. I'm pretty sure that exists, but. I don't think skins exist then in the single player, right? It would just be, or maybe you just download your own skins only. Those are the ones that exist all the time on your system, and then you just stream anything else that you don't own, right? That makes a lot of sense. But no, we don't do that. And lastly, Lego 2K Drive, I believe, came out, which is like that thing I was talking about was rumored, that Lego racing game, which I just think it's a funny name, Lego 2K Drive. Man, I really cannot come up with anything like. I feel like Lego. I don't know, like Lego Racers. Like that sounds kind of better. I don't know, Lego 2K Drive. I feel like the 2K itself is kind of just annoying, but whatever.
It's a 2K game, no?
Yeah, it's published by 2K, which is why.
Oh, so they got to put their name in it.
Just put it at the front of the game. Like I don't know, like I don't know how people are thinking like, dude, this racing game made by 2K must be better. I don't get why companies like 2K and EA and Activision are so like
into
they
their
just
own
really
brands.
want you to know. It's like, but it's like, if someone says like, hey, play X game, okay. Someone says, hey, play X game by EA. I'm not thinking like, dude, I gotta play it now. I'm thinking, dude, that's kind of scary, but okay, I'll play it anyways. Like it's not like a great thing. With 2K, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I only know them for like like the NBA series, I guess. I don't really, At least in that case, the name makes sense because the name has to do with the year, right? So NBA 2K23 or whatever, right? So it's kind of like a pun in a way, right? And that like kind of works, right? This is Lego 2K Drive. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. So, yeah, that came out, and it looks kind of like it doesn't. One thing that I thought was kind of strange when looking at the footage is that I feel like there's like no sense of speed. Everything looks kind of slow. I was looking at it, but yeah, otherwise, nice. That's all I have to say.
Nice. Anything in music, Ben?
Nothing particularly noteworthy. I saw, going back to talking about opera, actually, I guess there's something interesting to me. I guess the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, Metropolitan Opera in New York, is kind of the biggest opera company in America, at least. They during their production right now of Die Fledermaus, or The Bat, by Johann Strauss Jr. They elected to have the orchestra on like a raised platform, which is unusual because normally the orchestra plays in the pit. Yeah. And the I guess the guest conductor for the opera said something to like a reviewer or an interviewer about how that's how opera should be done. That we should the players should be get more recognition. That they're kind of blind and like in a dungeon. Service of the production that they can't even see normally, which prompted the representatives from the orchestra to say something like, we take great pride in what we do, and we know exactly what's going on even if we never see their production from the pit. and this is just how the art form works, and it's our job not to distract from the spectacle on stage. I thought that was interesting, but not a particular note to anybody unless you're kind of interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah, what's your opinion on the whole thing?
I think personally, I don't see what the problem with playing that pit is. I mean, yes, it's the same thing for like Broadway. You don't, or like musicals in general, right? You don't see what's going on, but if you don't understand what's going on before you even start rehearsing, right? Like you're not going to play very effectively. So you need to know what's roughly happening, even if you don't see it. And I kind of agree. The main driving thing in like opera, and also same thing for musical theater, right, is what's going on stage, and particularly like the leading actors, and like then just the whole spectacle of like what you see. It's not like you're not there to see the musicians playing on their flutes or violins or whatever, right? They're there kind of in service of the overall phenomenon, right? The overall production. You clap for them dutifully, right? But they don't. It's. I don't think they need to be seen for them to contribute effectively.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Sweet. Is that it for music news?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Before you start, I'm gonna leave real quick. I'm gonna get some water. But go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, there's not much I've noticed in the film world other than I've noticed there's been rumblings. I still haven't looked into the strike stuff, so don't ask me specific questions about it. I really don't know. Been way too busy. But I noticed that there was rumblings that actors as well, the Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, is thinking about striking as well, which will obviously put further pressure on the industry to make concessions. I was briefly reading what they say are the issues. Of course, there are always two sides to everything, so I really don't know, much specifics about anything. But it's kind of the same issues as involved in the screenwriting stuff. It's about residuals and some other stuff. I found this one interesting, though. I don't know if this was actually this actually. I wonder how this is in music. Actually, maybe Ben can tell me. But I know there's no union, obviously, in music. But
well, it depends. Like, there's musicians' unions. There's like there's American Federation of Musicians.
Oh yes, yeah. But they're complaining that self-taping is unregulated. So basically, I guess auditions were happening remotely, and probably still are to some extent, where people are sort of taping themselves doing different parts. I'm not really sure what the complaint actually is, because this doesn't go into detail as to why this is particularly unreasonable, because when you're auditioning, you don't get paid to audition to begin with. So it's kind of an interesting complaint, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Ben?
I'm not sure. Like, what exactly is the issue with having taped auditions?
Yeah, let me read directly from. I think this is a summary. I don't even know if this is in the words of the people. But this says, self-taped audiences are unregulated and out of control. Too many pages, too little time, and unreasonable requirements have made self-taping auditions a massive, daily, uncompensated burden on the lives of performers. Reasonable rules and limitations and access to other casting formats are sorely needed to ensure fair access to work opportunities and protect performers against exploitation. Yeah.
I mean, is that any different than, like, is auditioning in person?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't, like, unless the taped auditions require you to, like, read twice as many lines or twice as many scenes or something like that you would as you would in a live audition. Then I'm not really sure what. I mean, if anything, at least my experience in the musical world, taped auditions are generally like first round things, and then you'll be invited to a live audition if you're
Yeah.
if they like what you have, I guess. And if anything, you're probably playing less on those than you would in a like in-person first round audition.
Yeah, that's the weird part about it is like the burden, unless you're like literally acting all day, like or something crazy like this, like the burden on you, like a lot of times people are flying from all over the country, to go to a very specific location and dumping potentially multiple days into something that they might not even get any benefit out of. It might actually open up the field a little bit to allow people to tape themselves for a first round. No director worth their salt is going to give a non-extra role to someone who they don't see in person.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I guess so, for I don't know if this would be applicable for actors, but like I guess you could say, well, there's additional expense of some people like want to buy specific microphones. Is that just me like getting the echo my voice, or
I don't hear an echo. Do you hear an echo, Nathan?
We're good.
okay?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gone now. It's just I guess when Miles joined for a few seconds, this really bad echo of my voice in my.
Oh, okay,
my,
okay.
So.
Yeah, I just noticed Miles come in. I'll pull
Yeah.
him in while you're talking.
What was I saying? I guess some people like if at the beginning of the pandemic, especially decided they're going to invest in microphones or whatever and video cameras for a specific setup. Whether that actually helps you in the virtual first round audition or not, I have no idea. Probably not that much. If anything, I've seen even like some professional auditions say like totally fine to just record on your phone. So
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's probably not much of a downside other than that you are spending money, right? But there's probably not much of a downside of owning like some more technology that you could use for potentially other applications later. But I guess that is an expense if you feel that it is necessary to own for your virtual audition experience. But otherwise, I mean, you're still if you're gonna take a live audition, unless it's like in your home city by chance, right? You're still gonna probably fly or drive to wherever this place is, and odds are just have spent money and not end up being successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Skype logo appearing for everybody?
Yep.
What on earth is going on here?
Technical difficulties as per usual.
I literally have not put that. I'm
I thought it was
looking
you.
at him
I was like, I think it's just wonkiness because we have a fourth person now. So weird things happen.
Yeah, no, I like literally did not. Let's see if I have someone in. Oh, that's interesting. I had like a residual link to this video feed somewhere. Okay, well now we know where to move him around. So this is how this podcast goes. We edit in front of you, and you get to see it all live because why not? So you'll see us float him around the screen as we fix it up. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Ben, on your assessment. I don't really fully understand the whole thing, but I will do investigating later. There might be oh, he says he's going to go audio only anyway. Okay, that's fine. Let's see if I can turn off this video feed now. I probably should use something simple like StreamYards, but I'm stubborn, so I'm not going to.
Hey, what is this software?
StreamYards, it's for
No, what is your software?
Oh, it's called vMix. So it's like a proper, full-fledged, like, live editor. It's what I would be using for some broadcasting stuff. So in that respect, it's kind of good that I've learned.
Isn't it typical
basics.
people to use like OBS and stuff like that, or is that like a different function?
OBS, yeah, you can do a lot of the same stuff. It's just a lot more roundabout and annoying, and you can't do certain other things like you can do on VMix.
Okay.
This is set up more like a live editor like you would find in the industry. Okay,
Right.
so let's see here if I've got the audio correct. Hopefully I do. Looks like I do. So we've got Alex in the chat. Alex, I don't know if you're ready to come on mic. Oh. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe he's still
Guess
dealing with
not.
stuff. That's okay.
Not the
Okay,
moment.
that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, just let us know when you're coming on. Your mic is hot on live, so you can just start speaking once you unmute. But yeah, he came just in time for us to stop stalling because we were waiting for one of our guest hosts to arrive. Post or Alex. I hope Post is okay. But yeah, we'll be starting our talk on AI now. So this will be a fun time. Last time we talked for like 2 hours, 45 minutes on it. I don't think there's nearly as much, I don't think, to talk about this time.
I feel like it is a kind of infinite rabbit hole because there's so many questions can go down that like lead to like more questions, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we'll be talking about that again. I want to take a more practical approach this time. Last time we really went into like more philosophical ends of the whole thing. There are a few more like ethics discussions I suppose we could have, but I guess the first question, just to start the snowball of the whole discussion, is how has AI sort of not just because we could all imagine how automation, right, in general, could affect our different fields. I know in music, like there has been AI generated stuff for a bit now, but like what ways does the current sort of AI wave, hype train, evolution, whatever you want to call it, changed your field in like a surprising way, in a way that you didn't expect? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
In a surprising way? I mean, surprising relative to when? Because I feel like so far as I can think of, I can't think of anything that really caught me off guard. Any application that I was like, whoa, I didn't think about that. This happened relatively, recently. Maybe if you asked me this, like, comparing to like 5 years ago, I'd be like, okay, I didn't expect like any of this, really, But like, I don't think there's anything that really I can think of at least that's like sort of jumped out and been like, hey, this is like a new project that's happening, and then like I was like, whoa, I didn't think about like doing anything like that, Yeah. Sorry, that was not satisfactory.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Anything?
Yeah.
Music.
I'm not sure there's anything that I'm aware of that's surprising. Some people have tried using AI, just automation in general for like kind of not background, but like more, menial tasks in the composition process, in like the media composition process. But I'm not aware, like not anything recently of, people, as far as I can tell, really aren't using AI to write music, or other than for kind of like experimental things that researchers do, or things that people have done for kind of shock value over the last few years.
Yeah. Actually, I probably have a very similar response. Disappointingly, because like, okay, I guess the most impressive thing I've seen in the video space, film space, has been AI VFX. That turns out better than expected. As of now, not doesn't replace VFX studios or anything like that, but you can kind of see it get there rather quickly. That would be like roto tracing subjects and cutting them out of backgrounds. That'd be like being able to add wire skeletons to humans and images, so they can impose like 3D things, like, so 3D characters. Okay, all that stuff is interesting, but I don't think that's like wildly unexpected, if that makes sense. Um, like in After Effects for a while now, which is a sort of VFX motion graphics tool. There's been AI tools for like literally years now. Whatever they call AI, and we've discussed the issue with the term AI in the last episode.
I think we were more talking about deep learning, right? That's the focus.
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know what technologies were used for those things, but it just kind of feels along the same, I guess, path of growth, that already existed prior to. I think what really causes the current AI craze is like almost singularly ChatGPT, and maybe like some of the image generating ones as well, like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. I don't know what you guys think about that, but yeah, I feel like that's where the hype train comes from.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about most AI applications, I just remember something that caught me off guard. But I'll say the thing I was going to say first. But yeah, I think most of the time when you think about how AI has been currently been applied to video game development, it is often in the form of using ChatGPT for something, or using a image generator like Midjourney for something, whether that be for say concept art, or even sometimes finalized art for your work, or using people have tried experimenting with using the GPT AI. I can't speak. Hold on. Using the GPT AI API. Wow, I really cannot speak. The GPT API for various uses like in-game dynamic content, whether it be like NPCs speaking and stuff like that. And I've seen one. I don't know what it's called, so I can't like direct anybody to it. But it looked pretty good. It was like, I can't remember what it was like some guy talking to like a monk or something like that. Like the NPC was like a monk, and like I was like, hey, that's pretty good. I'm just curious how long you can keep a conversation going before like it just completely breaks down to something that makes no sense. But it was pretty cool, and he was actually speaking out loud to it. So it's using some system of essentially speech to text. So that was that's pretty cool that they could be that seamless too. Not like typing or choosing answer boxes. But the thing that did catch me off guard was I saw a plugin for Unity, which is a game engine, where essentially you can type in instructions and it would do it. So you can say like create a sphere or something like that, and it would create a sphere in the game, which is pretty cool. I only saw it do extremely basic things. Things that like you could probably just do quicker if you just did it yourself rather than typing out the instructions to do it. I'm not sure where I was going, but we've seen things like that with like Auto GPT and stuff like that, where we're getting just kind of like more advanced like task-based AI, which I think is pretty cool. And I think maybe we can see some pretty cool stuff come out of that later. I thought I had an original idea here. I was like, couldn't I just create some AI that just like not only because currently in ChatGPT you can ask it to write code and that's a pretty common thing to do. Can I ask it to just make me project files and then like I can just like create a program where it can actually interact with my computer? And I did that, and I found out I was not the first person to think of this. This was not a novel idea at all. In fact, everybody was doing the same thing at the same time as me, and I was not doing it in the best way at all. AutoGPT is like way better in terms of its approach to things. My approach was essentially telling it, hey, this is a Linux computer. You can run any Linux command you want. Here's some instructions. Do it with Linux commands, essentially. And it would work for simple things. Obviously, I didn't give it control of my computer like entirely. Like it every time it wanted to run a command, I'd have to like approve it because I'm not really trying to like get my whole like computer like RMRF or something like that. So it worked okay. Sometimes it was very hard to understand what was happening because if you try to edit files, for example, using just terminal, and you're not using an interactive terminal program like Vim or Emacs or something like that, it will create some very confusing terminal command that works, but you cannot understand yourself. So, yeah, but it's very limited in what it can do.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've actually tried using AutoGPT for some tasking, and for those of you who don't know, AutoGPT basically is a actually what word would I use it for? It's basically a implementation of AI tasking via the ChatGPT API. So basically what it's doing is it's using ChatGPT, I guess, analogously like a brain, but it's doing a lot of the sort of interaction with the world on its own, and also doing a lot of memory management on its own as well, which ChatGPT has some issues with when it comes to large sort of tasking functions.
There is a difference, by the way, between GPT and ChatGPT. So technically, it's the GPT API, which ChatGPT is based off of. But yeah, close enough.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been able to do some interesting stuff, but not my version or my installation was very unstable, so I couldn't play with it too much. So I have to go check out the project as it stands now. But yeah, I mean, so I guess that was kind of an underwhelming go around about AI in our particular industries. But I guess what is then the future then? Like, you know, nothing surprises us, but like, where do you see things going and affecting things? Like in the broader sense too, like your particular job, you know, in the industry, and how it'll be affected. Like, are people going to be demanding that you use AI in certain ways, or how is it going to be integrated in your workflow? Because for me, I feel like the number one way in which AI affects me is just alleviating a lot of little 10-minute moments from my life into 10-second moments of my life. And that is the massive change. It's not like it's not a catch-all sort of a situation. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I pretty much use it in a similar way, where like it just kind of is like a second search engine. It's just a search engine, but different. So it'll be like, I have a simple question, and I just ask it, and then it's like, you know, the fact that it's just dense, like it's knowledge dense, as in like I type it and the only output I have to read is the answer, and not like I type it into Google and it's like, here's like a few web pages, and you know, just like look at the blurb, read all the blurbs, figure out which one is like the right one to click, and then click on it, and then read, you know, find the answer in there. You know, hopefully there's no like
often there's a lot of fluff.
To the answer.
Yeah.
It's so common too. I think well, I think a lot of that is maybe SEO, because SEO, you don't use click back rate to be like, you know, really quick. But sometimes it just has to be like that, right? It's like, I want like a list of like I don't know, maybe I need to know like I don't know, the top 10 like best recipes. I don't know. It's random.
Yeah.
But if I want that, right, and I just want the names, I don't want like a whole like three intro paragraphs of like why recipes are important and like the history of like cuisine. And it's like, no, I just want like what the 10 things are, and I don't want anything else really, you know. So yeah, I like ChatGPT because it's very dense in that regard. It's not like a bunch of fluff. I use it kind of regularly for random coding things. So sometimes it's like, I know like how to do the thing, but doing the thing is just longer than me asking it to do the thing. So I'll just tell it to do the thing, right? I'll be like, hey, can you code X thing? Not that I can't do it myself, but like it physically requires me to type more characters doing that than just ask it to do it, right? And I copy it, and it won't be perfect, and I'll, you know, retrofit it to do whatever. Sometimes I will tell it to add a feature by just copy pasting some code, assuming it has no sensitive data, into it, and then saying, can you modify it so that this will happen. Most recent example was like for my service that I'm working on right now, I need to send a bunch of HTTP requests. So essentially, I need to contact a web server over and over again, like very fast for something. And I want to do this in a somewhat asynchronous manner. And so I had it done synchronously, and I was like, well, I know how to do this in JavaScript. You need to use the Promise API, but like I don't feel like typing that out. So I just asked it to do it for me, and then I copy pasted it, and it worked. So yeah, I think that's how the main use of it will probably be in video games. I don't really see like, I don't know, like a Skyrim with like ChatGPT like NPCs. I think that would go very poorly. Things would break.
Do you think so
fast.
though? Like actually, like it wouldn't pan out.
No, because if you attempt, which I have not done this in a very long time, so maybe things have changed, but if you attempt to like talk to ChatGPT like an NPC or like a human, it goes off the rail. The one big thing is memory, which I know there are like memory hacks, you know, to get like using something having to do with like Okay, the word I've heard in relation is vector. I don't know what vectors have to do with that. So I don't. I mean, but something about like a vector map of knowledge. I don't really get it. but supposedly you can essentially extend memory. But
I mean, that's partly what Auto GPT, is meant to do, right? Is do that memory.
Right.
If I understand intuitively, I have no idea how the underlying structure works, but just my programming brain, how I would do it if I were them. What it probably does is it has an instance. It's layering instances of GPT, I presume, and what it's doing is it's managing what instances are exposed to what memory, and it's managing what memory needs to be recalled dynamically as well. So it's kind of it's like a layer of AI for memory management on top of the whole thing, if that makes sense.
Maybe I'm not sure, but I do know that it involves the use of. I'm pretty sure it has multiple instances of like GPT threads, I guess you would call them, but threads not as in like the computer threads, as in like instances of chat logs, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that Unity plugin will become pretty powerful and work its way into like other engines like Godot and other things like that, or just a very general purpose one. There's GitHub Copilot, which I've still I used it like a very long time ago before ChatGPT existed, and I believe GitHub Copilot now works with GPT. And if you don't know what that is, essentially it is a Microsoft-made product, or I guess Microsoft-made product that uses GPT. That is like a coding assistant, so you'll start typing code and it'll recommend I think the way it works, at least it worked when I used it a long time ago, was you just type your instruction in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code or whatever, and then it'll just write it all there. So I guess it's just ChatGPT but tuned for code, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, that's all to say. I don't know. I don't really it's a cool tool. I don't think it'll be used as an NPC in something of large scale. That being said, Alex did post a game that I forgot to look at before the podcast, so maybe I'll have to look at the trailer while we're going. But it was a game called Event Zero where that supposedly uses AI, so I'll take a look at that.
Cool. How about you, Ben? Anything, any way you think it'll change the music space?
I would say as a performer, not really. We already have fantastic virtual instruments and samples and sample libraries. So if that's what you're going to use, I don't think AI is likely to improve that really, because those are still just built on recording live people and then manipulating those. So they can. I'm not sure they can even really get much better, no matter whether AI is involved or not. So if you want a live person is always going to be a live person. Can't really replace that. If not, well, you already have plenty of alternatives. So if I'm a performing musician, I don't really see any change there. For composers, I think what's more likely is that, I guess one of two things could happen, right? We right now there's kind of seemingly an oversaturation in the market of composers, or people trying to be media composers, and right, because people like to say, well, it seems like it's an attractive, lucrative thing to do. But also the technological bar to entry is so low that really all you have to do is spend money for the appropriate gear, and you can kind of do something even if you don't have degrees and all this stuff. So lots of people think they can do it. So I think one of two things could happen, right? I think either AI could lower the bar even further oversaturate the market, which some people don't like that. A lot of people think that really all that does is that you know, the same amount of money, right? Same amount of films are going to be made. So there's just more the same pot of gold being divided by more people, so everybody gets less. Or it decreases the number of people who are in the industry because the people who are at the top can afford to just use AI and not have to pay, for a whole army of assistants doing kind of background tasks, because the AI can handle those and probably will be able to handle ever more of those background tasks. So there are fewer opportunities for people to kind of work their way up the ranks by being in, internships and assistants and being assistants to composers. So I think either of those things are possible. And of course, there's always the possibility in the media world that, if the technology is good enough, you just say, the studios just say, well, this is, we want this sort of score, and these are some of the parameters, and it'll just, AI will just spit out a score for you. You don't have to hire a composer. I feel like that is certainly a possibility. Whether that happens or not, I don't know.
Yeah. I think in the film space. So what I'm afraid of is not really so much like in the arts. I guess this is my thesis, right? And you can agree or disagree. But my thesis here with AI is that I don't know that there will be so like all these sort of I guess culture pushing moves, right? So no matter what the art form is or whatever the cultural thing is, whether it's even fashion or whatever, these are still going to come from people. Like the influencer market is not going to die overnight because a corporation can now generate a new shoe with Midjourney or something, right? like that's not going to happen. Like it's the transference of culture in a direct sense. Still happens via people, and people care about other people. Maybe not the best people, but they care about other people, right? So my conjecture here is in the sort of creative space, the art space, that there won't be a change from the artists themselves in how they do things on the creative edge, right? So like someone like I don't know, Kanye, right? Really random example. But, Kanye is not going to, like, I guess I can imagine him actually using AI to do, like, some crazy stuff and be like, lol, this is AI and, whatever. But, he's not going to do producing experimentation, right? Through AI. He's not going to generate his next pattern of production based off of AI, and no one's going to care that he doesn't do that. What the change I think will come from is from the corporate end, where there's a high fascination with just tech in general, right? So like where there are corporate people who believe very much so in this next technology that looks like a catch-all is actually the catch-all, if you get what I mean. So executive number 15 wakes up this morning and is like, why do we need this artist, and this artist when we could just use Midjourney? Completely missing the point of how the market works entirely. You get what I mean? And
right.
These sort of executives have the problem of overstating or over believing, right, what the tech bros want to tell them about these particular things. So we see this with streaming, even, right? Like all of Wall Street flipped over backwards to back streaming because the idea here was that stream video would be so obviously financially viable because all 7 billion people on Earth are obviously going to get a Netflix subscription and a Disney Plus subscription and every other subscription, and obviously that will make it profitable at some point because then we can have an abundance of content that some person's going to want, and it'll generate money like crazy, ignoring the base fundamental economics of the whole situation, which never made sense. Content is way more expensive to produce, and it's not able to be algorithmically produced, which is how Netflix is struggling right now, is that they sort of left their sort of creative model and went into an algorithmic model based off of the data they were getting. Doesn't tell them what people will want, tell them what people watched, in the past. Went to that sort of algorithmic model, thinking that they could just be Google, basically, and then also tried to pressure studios into lowering their residuals, really, because they had their own competing studio that could do it for cheap, which didn't actually turn out to be the case. Turns out that if you want to hire Kevin Spacey to, I guess a poor example, but I thought of that because Kevin Spacey is kind of like OG Netflix, right? You think of Netflix's come up, Kevin Spacey is definitely part of that. But whoever, like, and you're like, okay, well, we can do without the Kevin Spaceys. Their next show is not going to need Kevin Spacey. You were wrong. You were utterly wrong. If you thought that was the case, and people do care about that sort of thing. So I think, in general, these sort of CEO class of people tend to think in that sort of way where it's like, okay, I'm being told this is a catch-all, it looks like a catch-all, it is a catch-all, and debt allows me to drive the industry in this direction, regardless of whether the market actually tells you that this is a good idea or not, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm kind of afraid that AI will end up being the same thing, where it's like, let's just replace our screenwriters for the next... Well, maybe Marvel movies actually you could do. But, let's replace our screenwriters, with AI, because we pay these screenwriters literally millions of dollars, every year. And this is just like a line item, and we'll just delete that line item with AI, and maybe we have a few flops for shows, but the AI will get better, and we'll get better, and we'll have a viable product at the end, which will cause a potentially irreparable harm to the industry as a whole, right? Like, as they did with theaters and streaming. They can't actually, like, put the genie back in the bottle, if so to speak. So that, I guess that's my fear of how things will go with AI.
The question is, will people notice? Like, if you did write an AI score for your film, how many people would know that it's an AI score? I mean, okay, maybe the chances go up if you have like a really long and complex score, right? And lots of music wall to wall, like, if you try and replicate a John Williams. But if you were trying to mimic like a kind of, modern, very ambient pad score, who's gonna know that you did that? And then does it harm the art form?
Well, I mean, for like that kind of style of stuff, perhaps it's not. I guess for me, I think that the screenwriter for like a stupid little sitcom is probably almost certainly gone toast to AI. But like the cultural boundaries are not going to move because of that. If you get what I'm saying, like we're not going to get culture shifting moves, which is where the money's made. By and large, it's these. It's the hype trains. It's the for better or for worse, right? Like that's where a lot of the money's made. You're not going to get those moments, those cultural moments from AI. And also, people don't care people actually care where the cultural moment comes from, too. It's so that I guess that's the distinction is like, well, if the music is sort of dime a dozen music, it probably doesn't make a difference, but do we even care about those people to begin with, but if it's going to be like something that's going to be I guess culture defining or even film defining specifically, then I don't know that I don't know that people will be the net effect, whether people realize it's happening or not, will be as good, if that makes sense, of the music. Because the AI doesn't know the meaning, like as we talked about in the last episode. We can't derive new ideas. You can't derive new ideas about a particular thing. So, it's kind of hard for me to imagine that you could create, it could ingest the Dune movie and come up with the Dune score, good or not, right? Like, from the script and from the film, if that makes sense. I'm not sure that would happen. I don't know if you guys agree or not.
I think that makes sense to me. I think, at least intuitively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to. I don't know. Does it? I mean, I think like intellectually. I don't know. Intellectually, I think we harm the art form, but not in a way that like if people don't recognize it, then are they going to be like if you want to look at Marvel, right? And like I think in some ways it's apparent what has happened with the quality of those films and like what sort of corporate things Disney is doing with them, right? But if it's not apparent that we are losing some quality, right? If the director just says, gives AI a few word prompt and it comes up with a score for your film, and nobody knows that you've done it, right? I don't know that it like will affect people's perception of the work as a work of art or not. I don't know.
I guess what I'm saying though is like I don't think the AI will be able to generate something that, like, yeah, it will. You can get an adequate, like something that, like, if you just pulled it away from the film, you pulled it away from the cultural moment, you just analyzed it in a vacuum, you're like, that's a competent piece of music. If you told me a person made that, then I believe you. All this kind of stuff. But the idea that we can get like sort of new cultural ideas, coming out of like a person's understanding of what is needed, for people, like, I guess Marvel is like the exact opposite of that. That's the problem. Is like, yeah, you probably could do all the Marvel movies that way, but I don't know that you could do something a little bit more. I guess I don't know what the word is for it, but
no,
yeah.
I mean I see what you're saying, I suppose, but then I might kind of counter that with, when was the last time that someone had a new idea in a score that really kind of is like defining or something that people actually recognize outside of like the composer community, right? The average person, right? What's the last defining film score people know?
Well, I use Dune as an example because I feel like that is a good example. Like, I particularly don't like the score, personally. I don't actually like the movie that much. I know that's blasphemy to a lot of people, but I don't really like the movie that much itself. But I know that score is literally inspiring for tons of people for whatever reason, and they will, go out of their way to sing its praises, basically. And I understand that when I listen to the score, I don't know that the choices that Hans Zimmer are making are obvious. Like, I could put in like into ChatGPT and go, I want to make a score for Dune, and it knows what Dune is, and I want to be sparse and kind of overbearing in moments, maybe. I don't know it would come up with what Hans Zimmer came up with, but maybe I'm being naive about that.
No, I mean,
we're talking about like specifically. Are we talking about like something you could do now, or something that's potentially possible in the future?
I guess.
I'm
not sure.
I feel like it's somewhat capable of doing this stuff now, and yeah, I mean, obviously, what you put in would be derivative, because that's all
Right.
AI can do. It can only, imitate it. But so much of film scoring is, in some ways, derivative, right? You give your composer a temp track, and you also probably are telling them, well, I want this scene to kind of sound like, oh, this particular scene from Titanic, or whatever film you want, right? And you maybe even put that in as your temp track. And it is, for most films, like it's kind of the composer's job to do their best to kind of attempt to be creative within those restraints, right? But any film composer will tell you that, like, your job is not to be the world's most creative composer, right? This is a very famous video of James Horner. Ironically, I use Titanic as an example, but composer of Titanic, who said that shortly before he died, that film scoring is the most restrictive form of composition, in that you don't own what you do, and you have very little choice. You're trying to be creative within a very tight box, and if you go too far outside of that box, they'll either tell you to rewrite it, or they'll get a new composer. So, yeah, there are really cool things that people do. Like, I love pointing them out on this show. Different things that people do that are different in some ways than what has come before, or an innovative idea, or just an interesting idea. But again, just to me, I don't think that's the way that most people think about the majority of people think about their film music. So if we just keep getting derivative things, how long will it take somebody to notice that nothing original, nothing terribly original and groundbreaking has come out in film scores? Probably a very long time, because I don't think most people pay much attention to film scores unless it's a big John Williams melody, like, that captures the attention of the public, like Indiana Jones Raiders of the Raiders March, or the Imperial March, right? Like, it's not often that the general public thinks about film scores at all, and much less whether they are kind of derivative or not.
I think with this song that we're talking, this song actually that you could actually probably just test, right? Like, in terms of how good it would be able to do in creating a score or something like that. I have a decent amount of experience with ChatGPT and asking it about music, and asking about music, like a specific music structure and stuff like that, and it does horribly in that, that category. You ask it give it a famous song, and you say, give me like the general structure of the song, and hopefully it gives you something correct. Sometimes it doesn't, which is kind of strange. And then you might ask for, say, some lyrics, and lyrics just don't exist in the song, which is very strange, because you think that lyrics would be all over the internet and stuff like that. I'm not really sure what causes it to be pretty weak at lyrics and structure, but I've noticed that. That being said, I don't know how indicative that would be of creating a score, because ChatGPT doesn't have, as we talked about last podcast, it's like a Chinese room of sorts, so it doesn't have an understanding, which means that it often gives contradictory information, right? But also it can have almost contradictory capabilities, where sometimes it at some point might demonstrate that it has no understanding or no knowledge of song structure. Sometimes, potentially, if you go the other way around and tell it to create song structure instead of give it the song structure of a song, it might actually be able to do it better. I'm not actually sure, but at least for asking it for song structures, it does really poorly. I don't know why. It's very strange.
Yeah. I guess it's not even necessarily even about particular, because capabilities could change, right? It could get better. But I guess in thinking about both of you speaking, if we took John Williams, I don't know if that's a good example or not, but if we took John Williams and just erased everything, the AI has no access to John Williams information, right, on John Williams and how he composes, orchestrates, anything, and we wanted to feed it Star Wars and say, create the optimal score, right? Are we going to get something better than John Williams, worse than John Williams, or good enough, or like what is the output that we expect?
There are two questions that like come to mind when you said that. Firstly, is like, who is John Williams like? Because if you wanted to describe something, you want to create something like what he made, you want to describe like, okay, so what did say like you were creating a score for Star Wars or something like that, right? But okay, what is the Star Wars music like? Because that's it's going to be a lot easier than if you're coming up with it, you don't have something that's like, at that point you're just creating it from scratch, really, So I mean, you might as well do the work yourself. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just not knowledgeable enough. And then the second question that came to mind was is it something that you could even that could even be described in words? Because it might be that like when John Williams is composing, he's not thinking like, okay, this note like makes sense because of this thing. It's just kind of like, this note makes sense, and I don't really know why, but it does. And so he didn't necessarily have like a reasoning behind it, which means that it won't be written anywhere. There'll be no way of knowing the why, right? And it might be almost actually like pretty unique to him. It might not be something that like you could get from somebody else, because it's just like it's not like he's like, well, this composer did it like this, and that he did it because of this thing, and so I want to put that into the song here. Maybe it's more like a very personal type thing where you might not get it from the, say, I don't know, however many influences you choose to put into like the machine.
Well, I guess my counter. So I understand what you're saying, but like, if let's take out the possibility to say compose like Corn Gold, right, or something like this, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's actually a creative decision in of itself. To decide to compose like Corn Gold itself is part of the composer's, job. So we don't want to do even that job for it, right? So and just say, just generate the perfect score for these images, and this existing audio, right?
Yeah.
Could it do that?
Well, so I get you probably have to be more specific with it. You probably can't just like, at least now, you probably can't just feed it, the Star Wars films and then say, well, here are some images, and come up with an appropriate Star Wars score to these, these shots, right? My guess is that it doesn't yet have the ability to like match, when we get this kind of a shot, John Williams does this. So wait, I will do this as well. My guess is that capability isn't there yet. You probably have to say, go in yourself and kind of like making a temp track, right? You say, well, this scene will be similar to this other scene in Star Wars. Therefore, AI, go and create the appropriate score based on this other scene.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think I'm even making it. So like if I guess my point is this is like the choice like for it to the specificity of the Imperial March is I guess in a way a new idea that accords with the meaning of this of its usage, and that meaning cannot be derived inherently from in any way. Like you can. So here's my point. I guess you can get a score that sounds like it could be perfect, if that makes sense, but you cannot break the barrier of the person listening to it and having the greater moment of like the usage is literally genius. Because I have a sort of I guess music is a hard example for this one, and I'm also not a musician, so it's hard for me to talk about it this way. But if I'm thinking about a script, like obviously you can use ChatGPT to make scripts. But if I remove Tarantino from the history of film, and I say I want to make a film about a former slave who wants to get revenge on slave owners, right, or something like this, and that's what I want to make, and I want it to be gaudy and cartoonish. I mean, I'm feeding it even all these creative notes, as well. I don't think that you could generate something that comes off as a good movie, but perhaps not something that understands the cultural moment, the meaning of the thing it's creating, and create something that people. Here's what it is: create something that people wanted or needed, rather than what people are satisfied by. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess again, I'll just say what I said earlier, which is that
who cares about it?
the film, right? The people who care about film scores, right?
Yeah, but they used to.
Well, probably more than they do now. Sure.
Yeah. Well, John Williams is a rock star. Everyone knows who John Williams is.
Right. But other than that, I mean, if nobody cares, then it's fine if it's satisfactory, right? A lot of people like to say that, you know, the highest compliment you can give a film score is that they didn't notice that there was a film score when the movie was playing. So
that's the highest compliment.
Oh, a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that. So if that is, you know, the epitome of a good score, is that you don't even notice that it's there, well then, what's wrong with it just being satisfactory, right?
Yeah, but I think that's that's not a AI problem. That's a culture problem. You know, that's
right,
yeah.
Well, it may be a cultural problem, but then the point is that AI, is it going to harm that? No, I think if AI were to just be implemented, you know, could be used more effectively tomorrow, I don't think that people would notice that there's something missing from their cinematic experience. Just because, you know, that's just how the culture is.
Yeah. I guess that's the difference. Is like, you know, if we're talking about satisfaction, obviously people are well. I mean, not even satisfaction could be enough. It's just pure dopamine hits at this point. You know, in terms of what gets people, I guess, attached to things. I mean, if you think of just like 2-cent comments on like short form video or content on short form videos, you know, that's just straight dopamine, you know, going on most of the time. But that's not necessarily like, but that's a pre-existing issue, you know, to the idea of AI. You know, it's not. So I guess in that sense, it's like it would cheapen the content pipeline for almost everything, and that it might not even be noticed even. But I don't know that the human experience is not harmed by that, or that means that there's literally no difference, if that makes sense.
I don't think there's no difference. I just think that the erosion of the human experience will be so unnoticeable that we won't even notice that we've lost movies entirely to AI. And, you know, it probably have AI deciding when to write a movie, and, you know, doing everything computers doing everything themselves, and would we really even notice that? I don't know. Again, yeah. I don't think that's good for us, but I don't know that there's any incentive for the Disneys of the world to not do that, right? They'd look at their bottom line and say, well, we haven't driven everybody away from watching things entirely, right? People are still watching content because that's what they do, and we're making money, and we don't have to spend as much money in producing this stuff, so why not do it?
Yeah. No, I guess then we're in agreement pretty much. I guess my point was more about the abstract ability for it to give people what they needed versus just what's satisfying.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I would agree, but I don't think that's an important calculus for most people or for the studio. So
of course not.
It's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah. It goes back to the whole thing where, like, if people don't know what is good for them, then, I mean, the whole thing is just wrecked anyway, regardless of AI or anything. When we're going down, like I was saying about Netflix, like, it's already algorithmic content. It's already automated to some extent, in the sense that, I mean, yeah, they have to hire creatives to fulfill what the algorithm tells you should make, but the algorithm literally tells them, make a chick flick that stars someone blonde on the anniversary of Legally Blonde, that you advertise in I don't know, in groups that contain wine moms. You see what I'm saying? Like it's already that algorithmatized. So you could already all that you're doing is just removing the creators who are basically robots fulfilling this vision anyway, and you're just putting some AI in its place to just do the last steps instead. To me, there's no difference, but I do see the difference in the way people react to things, as we find out on our Arguing with Reddit segment all the time for movie stuff. Like people, like you'll have these 1,000 upvote complaints about how there's so much stuff, but nothing is good in a sense that feels like it's like fulfilling, like in the same way that we talk about fulfilling in a sort of an abstract way. I just think it just continues to perpetuate that, just cheaper, basically. That would be my thought on that whole thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe the only thing I'd say is that when you start like looking at breaking the film down by like its constituent parts, it's even less noticeable to people probably, right? Like if you just did AI music, that's probably not as noticeable, right? The quality is kind of being degraded. But you look at like the level of the entirety of the film, right? It has some kind of algorithmic basis to it, and that's where it's losing out. Well, that's probably somewhat more obvious in aggregate to people, that like something about their film, the filmic experience itself is not as fulfilling. But I don't know that like if you just do it to some like one constituent part of the film, like the music, that will probably go completely unnoticed.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's sad, but I agree with you. Yeah. Oh, this is depressing.
Well, here's something that's not depressing. While you guys were speaking, I've been on the hunt for, like, looking up to see if anyone's made any progress on anything that's like, like a, well, obviously they're music making stuff, but like for film and stuff like that, and syncing that up with video. So, like, there is stuff that is very bad. So there's that. So currently, they're not there. Like, it's the one thing. The best thing I found was, I think it's called like Dynascore or something like that, and like it seemed like the best thing it could do was like maybe for like your YouTube video or something like that, you need some stock audio in the background or something like that. And the one cool thing is that it lets you change the essentially dynamically change. It doesn't like analyze the video and like go like, okay, at this point you should do this. You put in little markers of like, here's a tension marker, here's a pause marker essentially, and then it like changes automatically or whatever. So yeah, it's just like AI smooth transitions with some stock audio, stock music.
Yeah. I mean, I'm under no illusions that eventually, it'll get good enough to be passable. I'm sure eventually, whether it gets good enough,
I don't know. I mean, because I mean, maybe I don't know. I'm not so technologically in the know of how this AI works. But as we're talking about last time, it's like, if you, as you were saying, like the big hurdle initially was just like a lack of information, and then you have the information. Well, now the hurdle's over, and like I don't really know if I see. I feel like it's something that someone's gonna show me like a few years and be like, why'd you say such a dumb thing? Like, I don't know if I see like ChatGPT and stuff like that, like seeing like the same sort of revolutionary increase in skill in the foreseeable future. And we have seen even less progress in music. I'm pretty sure, like music generating stuff. I haven't looked at that in a long time because I don't actively use it on like ChatGPT and stuff like that. But when I that was quite a long time ago when I did it. It was like you could hear like artifacting and stuff like that. And I was like, this doesn't sound great. And I remember even before that, on like before ChatGPT came out, it was very rudimentary stuff, and it just sounded like garbage. But yeah, so
well, I could imagine that there's still a position, in the future for a composer, right, where you have AI does what it does, and you have your composer go over it and make it just a little bit better, a little bit more polished in certain places, kind of like an editor. And
But could it even get there? I don't know. Like to a point of like,
I mean,
reasonably.
It does pretty good. I don't know what the programs are, but there's certainly things that do a really good job with classical music. Right, you tell it to write a nocturne in the style of Chopin, and it will spit something out that a lot of people really like. If they don't know all Chopin's nocturnes, they'll probably, if they know like one or two, they might think that it's one of them. This is a pretty good job with that. So
Apparently, OpenAI has one. Usenet, a deep neural network that can generate 4-minute musical compositions with 10 different instruments. It can combine styles from country to Mozart to the Beatles. It was not explicitly programmed with our understanding of music, but instead discovered patterns of harmony, rhythm, and style to predict the next token in hundreds of thousands of MIDI files. Blah, blah. I'm curious. Maybe I'll try it out at some point. If that's possible. This came out in 2019.
Yeah. Kai in the chat, sup Kai, Kai Ross, haha, something like that, said, I think that makes sense. It might be a while before AI no longer needs a human co-author or editor. Yeah. I mean, to me, those questions aren't. I mean, they're interesting in terms of how long it might take. I mean, because we could be like, a decade out from. It could be like the .com bubble or like crypto or anything else. It might take a lot longer to reach full fruition in terms of how well things work. I think the more interesting thing though is like, I'm not so like, let's just take nu metal in the 90s, right? Like just a random genre that just occurred, right? And like on its face, it looks like a crossover between hip hop, some garage metal and like some other influences. And I guess you could kind of coax something to create that if you gave it all the parameters. If nu metal never existed, but I don't know that nu metal popping up in the 90s and 2000s is something that is dictated more by it just being like novel in a sense, or it being the appropriate thing for that time and cultural moment and influences that it is mashing in a very particular way that you couldn't anticipate, with as a single author getting on your keyboard trying to prompt this thing. You wouldn't even think to prompt something that specific, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I definitely, as we talked a lot about this last week, I don't think it has any, capability whatsoever of creating an appropriate art form for a given moment.
Yeah.
And, context and social, cultural history, whatever. I would be curious though how the current music writing AI does when you're not asking it to be incredibly imitative. Like if you ask, I think my understanding is that if you told it, write a Chopin nocturne in the key of F sharp minor, and in bar 36 it should modulate to A flat major, weird modulation, but whatever, you tell it to do that. And it should start off in 3/4 time, but in bar 112 it should go to 6/8, something like that. You give it those parameters and it'll spit something out at you. But I wonder if what would happen if you gave it a prompt that said I don't know, something kind of vaguely meaningful but not specific. So you said I want you to write a piece kind of that's has some element of dissatisfaction with one's current romance, and also have kind of a brooding darkness to it. Well, what would it spit out at you? I'd be very curious to know if it could come up with anything comprehensible from that instead of write a Mozart piano sonata.
Yeah. Isn't there a time in classical music, Ben, where dissonance was not very common at all, like pre a certain time? Or
Well,
maybe that's a complicated question.
it's a complicated question because the definitions of dissonance changed quite a bit.
Mm.
You know, if we go back into like the Renaissance era, things like perfect fourths considered like highly dissonant, whereas today we don't think of a fourth as dissonant, probably.
Yeah.
So that understanding changes over time, and it's influenced too by like the church, what the church thinks, and very kind of complicated question.
Yeah. I guess I wouldn't expect in the context of like having the data for like everything prior to the 1700s would get you like more modern, like more dissonant pieces. I don't think it wouldn't go like, this is a good piece now, it didn't spit out like something with a lot of dissonance.
Yeah, because there are certain things where it's like seem very counterintuitive. It's like it seems like the only way we got there was just by like trying it.
Not only that, but it's like our ability to understand and sort of mature through understanding. It's like, and I want to do an episode on this, on like sort of the development of art, over time. But like, there's the ability of the audience, a general audience. Obviously, there are specific examples of people who are fanatics about things, and they'll always be, I guess, farther along on the understanding curve. But like the general audience ability to accept something, that's given to them, and knit it together in their mind in such a way that it becomes more intuitive, more just more intuitive. I guess that's the right way. What the underlying thoughts are, the underlying meanings, or the underlying movements, the underlying beauties involved. We can easily cut ourselves off from more complex understandings of things. If you look at film prior to a certain time, you're not going to see a lot of different techniques, and it's not just a technological problem. Like, for example, the 180-degree rule, which used to be a hard and fast rule prior to, or like basically prior to the 60s, maybe the 70s, where you don't jump the 180-degree line. But today, it's like it's almost not a rule at all. But the way the cultural mind is working prior to the 60s is such that it is highly influenced by the stage, right? And so when you have that 180-degree rule, you're kind of emulating the way a stage, way spatial awareness is formed by looking at a stage. And that assists the general audience in understanding where things are in a particular movie. But as we sort of progress, the art form sort of progresses, that idea gets thrown away in favor of using the lack of stage for effect, right? And as we sort of culturally come together to understand these things, we're more open to the ability to intuitively understand what these things mean. And they're not random. Like, it's not random that the 180-degree rule specifically is what goes away, but something like, I don't know, the audibility of dialogue, right? Like, or I don't know, something like, fundamental, right, doesn't go away. So it's like the art form has like a fundamental structure, but like the rest of it is possibly very far and wide compared to what we even understand it to be today, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure that the thing can't know when that point is at which it can go, I want to do this thing now that is different from what has been done before, because it doesn't have that ability to understand that at all, and the question again will be, does it matter at all? And it possibly economically in our current situation does not matter at all.
What if like be able to make all this AI generated content that people like consume, right? And if you're saying like, okay, well, you may be able to create like better things, but like will yeah, as you said, people will matter, right? Um, I mean, if people become so used to like the say AI, let's say the AI stuff is kind of mediocre or whatever, right? It's just not as good as like what a human can do. Um, would it be possible to like just shock people like, hey, like I know you've been consuming AI content all those years, but like here's like some human stuff, and it's actually like pretty good. And it's like way better than this stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like every art form as it exists today is abysmally underappreciated. You know, whether it's like just coffee, you know, or like anything. Like we are in a state right now as a culture where we have a very low, cultural competency with pretty much anything art related. Which is kind of why this podcast exists. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking too, though. Again, maybe it's just a cultural thing, but in some ways, we don't even recognize when these things happen in our real time now. So why would we notice that they're not happening, right? Like,
Agreed.
for instance, in music, and when I eventually get to talking about like my current flute versus the German flute from 1890, one of the big things in the classical music world is the debate about historically informed performance, right? And it's a big deal for musicians, right? Do we perform, especially we're talking about like Baroque music, but it applies to any music, right? Hence me playing a German flute from 1890, right? Do we try and play things in an authentic, as authentic a manner as possible, right? As close to what the composer would have heard and expected to hear as possible? This is a huge intellectual debate amongst musicians for the past 60 years in the classical world.
No.
But to the average, even classical music fan, if you ask them about historically informed performance, they have no idea what you're talking about. If you put on a historically informed, ensemble playing, historically informed Mozart, they'll be like, what on earth am I listening to, right? No, I'm going to go listen to the way that it's always performed and by the big symphony orchestras and has always been performed by the famous conductors and on the famous recordings of the last 100 or so years. Really, it's only the musicians who are like, wow, this is really cool, or wow, what a terrible thing this is, I will rebel against this. Musicians care quite a bit about this stuff, but the impact on the broader culture is almost entirely zero. So
yeah, but I think I still think though that like it would be like I remember the days where like behind the scenes for movies were like a big deal. The DVD coming with like a section where the different major artists in a movie like talked about their craft and stuff, or like Universal Hollywood Studios was like a big deal because it like broke the fourth wall and showed you how like certain special effects were done and all this kind of stuff. And I think what happens, the reason those things were so attractive to people is because they expanded their appreciation, even if they don't ever go past what they learn in those moments, and go deeper. The next time they watch something, it's more, it's literally more informed. And when this happens properly, in the art world, you have a good back and forth between the artist and the audience. They kind of both grow together, even if the artist is not literally able to explain some finer, minute detail. The impression to the audience is still kind of felt, if that makes sense. It's the reason why we have such granular, fine, I guess, control over all these little details in movies and stuff. But I don't know. That's my thought on the whole thing. I guess this is kind of intertwined into my pursuit of trying to open those closed doors again. Where people kind of think more deeply about what they consume instead of just being consumers. So maybe there's some like baggage along with the way that I think about these things. But yeah, sweet. Well, I think we exhausted that topic.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, maybe the last thing to cover, because I think this is kind of important, is like the legal aspect of things in terms of like, because there's a lot of fighting going on over stuff in terms of the legal aspect of things. At first, if you remember, like, I don't know, maybe in a news segment a while ago where we were talking about a lawsuit. I can't remember what the lawsuit was. I think I said something like, it just seems kind of like industry is kind of reacting violently to the new tech, and these copyright issues aren't really copyright issues. So I wanted to know if I was right, and I ended up reading the Getty Images versus Stability AI lawsuit and response. And I have to say, I was completely I completely overstated the issue, because I had this thought right before I read the lawsuit. I was like, there might be a terms of service issue, and that's what it is.
I see.
So, I'll put a link to the two documents, the suit and the response in there. But here's the thing about this whole thing that I think is important with the legal stuff, is that if this whole thing is built on a house of cards, legally speaking, and the whole thing can collapse tomorrow, that is a huge deal. Like, and it's not clear to me that is not the case at all. And I'll sort of explain briefly, and then we can give our own. We can discuss more liberally. This is the response, and this is the original suit. And the interesting thing about the original suit is that they spend a lot of time talking about copyright, and so a lot of the articles end up talking a lot about copyright. Like if you look up these, just
the Law 360 link requires an account.
Okay, just make an account. It's free. Okay. I think maybe a 7-day trial or something. Whatever. I made an account just to look at this article. But the interesting thing about it is that we end up talking mostly about copyright. All the articles are about copyright when they talk about this stuff. And when it comes to copyright, I'm truly not convinced by, especially after reading Getty Images' lawsuit. They make a big deal about copyright. I think that's all nonsense, particularly because there's fair use. It's quite established. Nothing that comes out of AI, as far as I know, they couldn't even come up with examples themselves. And they came up with some examples for other things, but when it came to derivative work examples, they couldn't come up with an example that was so derivative as to be not a defense, fair use to not be a defense for copyright, right? So I'm convinced that the copyright argument is probably nothing. But the section, it's actually the third section of their lawsuit.
That begs the question, what if just eventually that happens,
It could be the case. And that would be an infringement of copyright. But the interesting part of the lawsuit is actually like the third point they make, which if you know lawsuits, hey, fancy lawyers doesn't mean they're going to write good lawsuits. 100,000% doesn't mean they'll be good trial lawyers. It really is highly individual. So I think there's a big problem in this lawsuit where they put the copyright issues first as if they're the most important, when they're the least salient points they have. And then they kind of throw in this terms of use argument third, as if it is the tertiary point. Then all the articles come out and talk about copyright as the main point of the suit, which is not playing well in the court of public opinion. That's just not smart lawyering. The court of public opinion also matters to your company's reputation and to your lawsuit too. So you need to present a good case, persuasively. The actual third point that's in this lawsuit is about terms of use, saying that they have strict rules against bots trolling for information on their site. It's that simple. And the thing is, that's common. That's not even That's not even like a weird thing that they have in their own thing. Almost every website has restrictions on how bots can pull information from said website. And they were alleging that they were using bots to do so. Stable Diffusion, or Stability AI, which makes Stable Diffusion, responded with basically a jurisdiction argument. So if you don't understand like lawfare, how lawfare works, you already know when one part. It's very likely, I should say, you don't know. It's very likely when one party makes an argument and the other party ignores the argument, and the only argument that they have is some legal technicality, there is probably some merit to the other arguments they don't address in their motion to dismiss. So the only argument they make is, look, we're a UK company, man. You're trying to sue us you're trying to sue our U.S. Entity, in Delaware, which is only a holdings company anyway. So like, which actually makes it worse for them. It was a terrible argument on jurisdiction too, because they decided to make their parent company in the United States, which is just a shell company, probably for tax purposes and other regulatory purposes, but they really operate out of the UK. But then they're saying, oh, don't sue the US version for the sake of all our offices are in the UK. It's a silly argument. I don't think the judge is going to accept that. They probably are in the correct jurisdiction. But then the really clown argument that they make is actually the most neutral place for us to try this lawsuit is Northern California. which they have no connection to Northern California at all. They don't have offices in Northern California, but a lot of the witnesses reside in Northern California. Therefore, we should move the case to Northern California, where there is Silicon Valley, and where there is Silicon Valley, there are Silicon Valley judges. That's really what they want out of the whole thing, is they want to move venue to a friendlier venue. But that signaled to me like, oh, you didn't do this in any reasonable way. It seems as though you didn't have humans copy paste these images and their descriptions manually into your data whatever archive. You actually did have a bot do it, and that's a big deal, because I think all of them do it. ChatGPT probably does it. They probably all just ignore terms of services of websites to troll for all of that data. And here's the particular vicious thing about the Getty Images lawsuit, is that Stable Diffusion ends up being a competitor to Getty Images. So what they're doing is they stole all the data, because it would effectively be stealing because they're not allowed to get it in that particular way. They stole it all to create a competitor that directly competes against the thing they stole it all. It's particularly vicious. So, it's not a copyright thing, is my point here, I don't think. It's because derivative works are a thing. They've been a thing for a long time. What I think it actually is there might be a massive terms of service issue across the board with all AI.
When you think about it, there's no way they could have considered the terms of service of every website by just because there's so many websites, right? There's too many that they look through. That being said, there is a tool. So I'm pretty I've done a lot of web scraping, and there's a thing that websites have called a robots.txt file that pretty much any major website is going to have. Even a lot of smaller websites have them. Getty Images has one. I checked it. Essentially, if you just type in any domain name such as gettyimages.com and you put /robots with an s.txt, a good chance, if it's any big site, you'll let me find it. Just a list of the Getty Images one is wild. I don't know if you want to look at that one. But because they're not allowing a bunch of not safe for work things is what they're doing. But it shows essentially what robots are allowed to and not allowed to scrape from their website, essentially. What pages. And presumably on this long list of pages is probably the search page. Yeah, I see it. As the search page and stuff like that, right? I'm assuming it disallows essentially any images pretty much from being just crawled. It looks like at least the searches. So you couldn't do automated searches, things like that. That shouldn't. No, okay. Robots.txt is not legally binding by default, but I believe if you, it's more of like a, you should just respect it because that's just the nice thing to do. So things like Bing's web crawler, or just how they index pages for Bing, and same with Google's web crawler, they will respect it. But otherwise, it's not legally binding unless perhaps if you put in the terms of service like, hey, like we have robots.txt, you got to respect that. Then maybe it is actually legally binding. But by default, if you don't do anything, it's not. So, but I assume that that's what they're doing, and it's quite clearly laid out. It's like 4 things that show that search is not allowed. So, yeah.
Sweet. And before we continue talking about copyright, we've got Alex joining us.
Hey.
So, hey, how's it going? Oh, I
don't think
hear
we
you.
can hear it. I think your mic's muted.
Yeah.
Let me try that. Is that
there
good?
we go.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry about the late entry here.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah,
Life
you want
of
to
the
introduce yourself?
My name's Alex. I'm just a guy. But no, Irving introduced me to what you guys do, and I was interested. So I do a lot of work with programming and stuff for my job, a lot of coding work, and I'm actually studying for a cert in AI. I want to fill that into my resume and stuff, so I'm really interested in this topic. I am a Catholic dad, and I've got 4 kids and a beautiful wife who's very understanding. So, yeah, I'm just blessed to be here. So, pleasure to meet you all.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the show. Yeah, I don't know if have you been listening at all? It's okay if you haven't, but while we've been chatting about.
Yeah, I've been catching about the last like 10, 15 minutes. So
Okay. No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. No, we're just talking about copyright and other legal sort of issues when it comes to AI.
yeah, it sounds super interesting.
Yeah. No, as to what Nathan was talking about in terms of the robots sort of thing, like, I don't know that it even matters if that's even there, because so long as it's in the terms of service, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is essentially like, even though the robots.txt file is not legally binding, it's possible that like you could refer to it maybe, or it at least shows that Getty Images does not want you to do that, and they probably put it in their terms of service, as well.
Yeah, I checked. It's there. Yeah, it's definitely there.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if it doesn't serve as intent, they might make it so that it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And even accidental in like in a civil context wouldn't even be enough, for them to overcome the lawsuit. So like might be like billions of dollars actually in damages, because Getty might be able to prove that they've lost, billions of dollars potentially. I don't know. Maybe they can. Maybe they can't. Or it kind of creates like a target on everybody, on every data sources, any big data source. It kind of puts a target on every AI provider to go after them for terms of service issues, going forward, which, that's probably all of them. That's probably actually all of them.
Like Dolly and like Midjourney too, right? And I can imagine like for even text ones, if you're scraping of like the entire internet, you can probably just pick a random website. You'll probably find there's got to be one that's like, hey, we don't allow scraping our text in based on our terms of service. Maybe a lot of like websites that maybe distribute, say, short stories, or I don't know. I guess I don't know. I said short. That could be normal length stories too, but stories and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, Ben, because I think it affects the music space too. Because I know I think maybe the line of attack for the people who are unhappy in the music space is wrong. In terms of copyright issues and stuff like this.
I guess, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, for the most part, I guess if you're looking at imitating a bunch of dead composers, that's not really a problem. Yeah. I mean, I certainly know that I would not want my music contributing to AI. Not that what AI is it's not losing anything by not having Ben Costello's music in its database. But even if I felt that I was a competent composer, there's just a sea of music that's already out there. So missing one drop from the ocean is hardly anything. But
yeah, but even think about like illegal content that it's accidentally downloaded, like movies that shouldn't be available online at all. Like even if you paid for them, you know what I mean?
Oh, interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah, because it's like, did it crawl Pirate Bay?
It could have in theory, I think.
Would they whitelist that? And they couldn't whitelist all of them because there's gonna be some random person who has their own little server that has some random movies on it or something like that. But they might not even realize is public, right? They might just think it's sealed. But as I found out with my own service, is things have been crawling my website, and I don't know how they got there because I never published it. I never posted it anywhere except Discord. So it makes me wonder if Discord is doing something, but.
And maybe this does have some go back to copyright, but I'd be interested, if you wanted to make an AI that is, program that is capable of doing a lot of film or video game stuff, scoring stuff, right? You probably want to train it on a bunch of film or video game scores, right?
Yeah.
But I would be curious as to how that could work legally, right? And it probably is not a terms of service issue. Maybe I don't know exactly how in terms of ownership, right? Disney owns the score for Aladdin, right? Yeah. They own all the rights to score for Aladdin. What a computer is allowed to do with that, with the score for Aladdin, right? It's one thing if I want to take some inspiration from the music of Aladdin, and Disney will probably still come down on me anyway in court, whether they have a right to or not. Normally, what Disney does, and they're very good at this. Normally, what they'll do is they'll just say, well, you just get you'll you don't want to run into legal problems with us. And because you just made an arrangement for your what's the song from Aladdin? A Whole New World, right? Mm-hmm. You made an arrangement of that for your high school class, whatever. And Disney will come down on you and they'll say, we could take you to court, or you give us the rights and we'll allow you to use it for your class, your high school band class or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know exactly how that would work with a computer studying A Whole New World.
Yeah, I think it probably depends on where the source is, because if they just took the DVD or a record or a CD of a recording and plopped it in there and we're okay, we're going to be using this as the data source, it's very likely that there's nothing contractually binding for you not to be able to use it in that way. But if the way you got it was from Disney Plus, that would even require some intent actually. You'd have to have an account and you'd have to
Disney
pay
Plus
for the service.
Pretty good too about trying hard to block you from sharing anything, right?
Yeah, they probably use the content protection stuff that Netflix uses on stuff like
right,
that.
But it's all circumventable for sure.
It probably is. That shows you even more than Netflix. Crazy. You can take a screenshot on your phone if you're watching a video on Netflix. You can take a screenshot, but the moment you try to do that on Disney Plus, it just kicks you off the app.
Yeah,
instantly. Yeah. So I'm sure there's a technological way of getting around that.
Oh yeah.
But they're making it clear they don't want you to be taking any of their content from Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I think might be like a big like sort of elephant in the room that nobody's sort of thinking of. And this case is it's still in the opening arguments pretty much. There's no trial yet.
It takes forever.
Oh yeah, it takes. That's the thing. Is like these companies are gonna sort of. I mean, I'm actually like kind of. I am not a defender of Getty Images. I don't care about Getty Images in particular. Oh, my camera died. Oh, that's fun. I'll have to fix that in a moment. But I don't care particularly about who wins the war here in terms of is it okay for them to use the data that comes from these things? I think it's fine. I think my issue comes from they actually may have stolen a large part of the data according to those terms of service, which is kind of nuts because I don't think there's a way they could argue by saying, well, we didn't know this was a gigantic hazard of trolling the entire internet for information. Of course it was a gigantic hazard, and they kind of did it anyway, which is kind of like I don't know, like it's kind of sus. So yeah, I
think it also kind of depends on the business model. If they're doing something like a free service, essentially, which seems to be what OpenAI is kind of into right now. Whether that could be considered stealing or not is kind of seems shaky to me.
Yeah, it would depend on. Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember I was in a video game development server. I remember someone asked a question about copyright, and this is obviously a random Discord person answering, so I don't know like the validity of this of this answer. But I remember he said that regardless of free or not, whatever instance, I think he was essentially trying to create a copy of a game, essentially. He said that regardless of whether the game that he created would be free or not, that it would still be beholden to the same copyright rules. I don't know if that's true. That guy was a random guy. So
yeah, actually, I see. Again, I don't think it's a copyright issue that we're that's the issue here. But like when you make something, it's automatically copyrighted. Regardless of the intent to use.
That's true.
But that's not necessarily relevant for
terms of service.
For terms of service, yeah. Kai in the chat says IDK. Obviously, this being about IP is weirder, but I feel like if I steal something from a store and give it to someone for free, I still stole it. Yeah. yeah, it might be the case for sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of thinking about the access method because it seems like the AIs, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on the tech about this, but they just kind of access it the same way a normal person would, perhaps, just a lot faster by scraping instead of pulling up the site or doing a GET request or something like that.
Yeah. From a copyright perspective, I think you're absolutely correct, and that's why I really wasn't about the copyright arguments, because it was like, okay, well, I mean, I can learn from something by just going to the website and looking at it and making a derivative of it, and that would just be fine. Yeah, it really is just about like whether or not the terms of service allowed you to do it with bots or not, to scrape it with the bot. And that's
also,
kind of
like, this is like not that related, but kind of something that might incidentally happen is that because I web scraped a lot of things, and I know that like obviously service providers don't want you to hammer their servers randomly, right? There are like laws about things like avoiding essentially DDoS protection, right? Which can occur if you're trying to scrape like Getty images of like lots and lots of images, where it could trigger something like that. I've been and it's not very hard to trigger that because I've been IP banned from Best Buy randomly. I thought I was like within my limits, but apparently one search too many.
Nice.
Temporarily, I think it works now. I'm pretty sure, but yeah, it does work. Yeah, but it was like a temporary period where I just could not go on Best Buy or whatever. But
yeah, it's a great.
I think yeah, I think it's possible that like, even though I don't think this is not a DDoS attack by the people who make stable diffusion and stuff like that, but it's very possible that they could have accidentally triggered something like that and have potentially attempted to just keep going through with it, which I'm not, I'm not, as I mentioned before, not 100% caught up on law and stuff like that. But that's something that I've been careful about, doing that kind of stuff. So I'm curious if that's something that would be brought up in the future as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a DDoS could essentially use the same web framework that a normal person could use to access the internet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just at larger scale.
It makes it look legitimate too. It looks like just random people are accessing it, but it's actually like very potent robot.
Yeah. So I think that was good on that topic. I'm gonna change my camera battery, but Alex, if you want to talk about, I don't know, throw something our way in terms of what you're excited about with AI and how, because I know you were saying in the Discord it's kind of been inspiring for you lately. So if you want to talk about some of that.
All right. Well, I guess the most fascinating thing for me is the philosophy behind AI. I did a lot of like searching and understanding for like transhumanism and that sort of thing. Not that I'm prescribing any of that or getting into any of that myself, but just as an interest to see sort of how the culture is going with a lot of this stuff. And I think AI plays a big role in that, especially when you get to questions about entity and when does an AI become something deserving of rights of its own and things like that. So those are all questions that I'd like to know the answers to, if possible, even if hypothetically an AI actually never becomes sentient or something like that. So that's kind of the driving factor for me. And also, there's also the fact that it seems that AI jobs are the highest paying right now. So, practically speaking, it seems like a good avenue to get into. But yeah, as far as AI goes, it's all over gaming. There's a ton of storylines and characters in games right now that are reflections of AI or AI characters themselves, or it's embedded in the story of the game.
Yeah, I saw that you posted Event Zero, and then I forgot to look at it until the podcast started. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, I've seen this before actually. It's actually like it's not old by any like in the history of gaming, but it's relatively old compared to how long we've been talking about AI like this. Like it's like pretty like it's well before ChatGPT. Was it like 2016 or 2019 or something like that? 2016, I feel like it was.
2016.
Yeah.
It's a game that seems
super
like
interesting.
a game like 7 years too early.
For the buzzword.
For those who don't know, it's like I haven't played it myself, but from seeing the little bit I've seen of it, it seems that essentially the AI comes into play in that you talk with essentially almost like a chat bot on a terminal. So you think it takes place on a spaceship, I think, and you type into this little terminal thing, and the terminal will respond to you as if it, essentially a robot, and it will respond to anything, right? It's not like you have a predetermined set of choices you can choose from or something like that. It's just like type in whatever you want to type in, and it responds. And that's pretty cool. And it responds appropriately to the universe. It seems it's not like giving generic responses and stuff like that, which is super cool for something that came out in around 2016. So that's cool to see.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking like, what would that look like if we hooked up ChatGPT to it or something? Like, how would that change the dynamic of that game?
Yeah, I mentioned before that I saw a video. It was from like a Twitch stream of like someone talking to like a fake, like an NPC in a game. It wasn't a full game. It was just like a tech demo essentially, and it was using the GPT API. And he would talk to it, and when he talked to it, like you would talk to it not with not typing it like through a microphone, and then that speech would be turned into text, and then that text would be fed to the GPT API, and it had essentially this like old man who was supposed to be a monk, and he would respond to him in a pretty like convincing way. And one thing I forgot is that you'd even like turn his like gestures would seem to like match like what was actually going on and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting. I wish I could remember what the tech demo was called so I could like pull it up or like that. I can't remember, but that was pretty cool and like a modern application of something like that.
Yeah, I just briefly pulled up the the trailer for what was it called again? Event Zero.
Event 0. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. So yeah, we were actually talking about NPCs, and I think Nathan was saying there's some issues earlier with that, but
Yeah,
it seems like
I was saying. Wait, what about?
No, I was saying that apparently there's a lot of examples of it, so maybe it's
Oh.
not so much of an issue.
I was gonna say the issues that came to my mind were one like the limited memory that like ChatGPT and similar AIs tend to have, and that you'll be talking and then they'll kind of just forget anything prior events. And there are I've heard of essentially ways of I guess enhancing memory. I'm not too sure on the technical details of that kind of stuff, but yeah, that was a general concern. Sometimes there are like moments where like it'll say something completely like wacky and it kind of like would eject you from the universe. I feel like it only takes one mistake to end like because the point of having AI in the game would be, well, one is potentially less work. You don't have to write a bunch of lines. Two is like it's maybe more immersive, right? You don't have a bunch of predetermined lines. You can have very tailored lines to what's going on. But if like you have maybe 10 really good lines and one random like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. That might just be going back on all the progress you've made there. So that was kind of my concern, And like in like a large scale application, say like Event Zero is not to diminish the accomplishments, it's a relatively small scale application of it. But if you were to say put it in like a Elder Scrolls game, right, like Skyrim, and then imagine something that's that complicated with so many different NPCs walking around and stuff like that, I can imagine it getting very bad very quickly.
But I get what you're saying, but couldn't you could have like a hard coded sort of caps on things, like after a certain amount of time you could have the conversation like end, and the person be like, I'm not talking to you anymore, and go goodbye. Like,
Just,
what I
sorry.
mean? Like, yeah, I'm done with this. You talk too much, and walk away or something like this, right? Like, you could effectively get more immersion out of the whole thing. It might not be perfect, but like it's more dynamic than you currently have, if you get what I mean.
Right. That's true. And another thing that came to mind is like, okay, imagine that you can create convincing NPCs. You might not really convincing isn't realistic, right? Oftentimes, like, we're talking about, whether it's like video games or movies or whatever, or books, people don't talk like real people oftentimes because it might be essentially stylized, right? It might not be, actually a good thing for things to act realistically. I remember seeing like a funny, like, I don't know where I found it. I don't know if it was from the Discord or something like that else, maybe from Reddit. It's like a funny, like, thing of a meme of like, well, like, playing GTA is fun until people start acting realistically, and then like they're screaming about like, their children and stuff like that as you're about to kill them, right? That's not like something you want to play through. So I wonder if like if we had in a world where like text becomes more or like vocal lines become AI generated, in which the job moves from like scripter to like or scripter writer. that's how you say that, writer to like a someone who's in charge of like coercing the AI to be stylized, to be what I'm saying, and however that might look like.
Yeah, could be.
Could be.
Yeah. What's your cert about? By the way, Alex, like, what is it? Was it?
The cert I'm taking is it's the IBM Applied AI course through Coursera.com. So it's kind of like at your own pace, which is essential for me right now in my current stage of life. But it's basically taking a broad look at AI, just to kind of get a feel for what's out there and what can be applied to different situations, and then specialize from there. So you've got your like machine learning, your deep learning, like the neural networks and all that. All the different categories kind of goes into how all that works.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
One of the things that strikes me in the conversation with the NPCs is like with assistant chatbots, what companies are really going to want is for that immersion to, really get refined over the next decade or so, so that people really can't tell if they're talking to a robot. And I think that's definitely going to spill over into games, and that's something we're going to see.
Yeah, you just reminded me that that outside the art world, it's there's a lot of applications. Like I can't imagine like a customer service agent that's just kind of an AI bot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
they already have those like pseudo, those like fake like live chats. You know what I'm talking about for customer service. If you could replace that with something that like maybe essentially could do the job of the actual employee, but just like get the preliminary information first, that could be very useful.
Yeah. I can't imagine how many jobs though. That's a lot of jobs. Like call centers, it's like thousands of people, and it's kind of the casualty of growth. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sad thoughts.
Drop that sad thought.
We've had a few sad thought moments thus far. Yeah. But it is approaching 10:30 as it did last time. I suppose I know Alex just came on, but it's we have limited time, unfortunately, limited time. But no, thank you for being on and talking about stuff from your perspective. And we definitely have to have you on to talk about game dev stuff, generally speaking, later on.
It'd be my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. But do we want to wrap up in general?
Yeah, I don't really have any more burning topics.
Yeah,
on my head.
Sounds fine to me.
Yeah, no, I think we last time we exhausted the philosophy. This time we exhausted sort of the practical end of things. So I think we've done good with this. But those of you who are out there watching right now, thank you so much for watching. If you have any thoughts for like other AI sort of related topics that we could talk about, definitely let us know in the chats, the comments. Link to the Discord is in the description as usual. And maybe we'll do another roundtable as sort of things develop, down the line. Might be 6 months from now, might be 5 years from now. Who knows? How this thing will progress. But we have more roundtables scheduled because I think we like this format. This is kind of nice and free form. So we'll be doing other sorts of stuff about that later. And if you don't know what we do on this podcast, definitely check out our channels and stuff like this. You'll see a lot of random stuff, pretty random topics, but we tend to go pretty deep into them, which I think is the fun part of this podcast. So definitely check those out. And I didn't shout out at the beginning of the episode. We have our awesome local supporters at mixedmedia.locals.com. There's K Kairos, who is in the chat. Sup, Kai. We've got 909 Crime. We've got Post. And we've got Rob Sharma supporting us for $5 a month at mixedmedia.locals.com. There's a bunch of perks. If you go over there, you can find them. There's a little locals chat on our Discord. It's a fun time. So, just check out the link in the description for that. Other than that, I think that's all the housekeeping I've got.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Thanks for watching and listening.
Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on like that way. They know I'm all righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vipers.